Welcome back to We Are Humanity. This is episode 6, and this is a channel that is designed exclusively for promoting human unity and trying to advance social harmony. This channel is designed to challenge the entrenched notion of us versus them thinking and to get us to see that the them are us and we collectively are humanity. In the previous episode, we introduced the concept of the SOS, that mental collection of ideals that originate from the unconscious that serve to condition us to believe that we are somehow different, that we are not all a part of the same human family. And so, in part two, on the discussion of the SOS, I really want to revisit some assertions from part one, but give a little more detail to hopefully give more insight and to stimulate more thinking about the relevance of this phenomenon that I call the SOS. We'll start with some food for thought. The SOS has conditioned us to believe that the the human skin varies in colors ranging from white, yellow, red, brown, and black. We all are familiar with that false labeling. In fact, the only um, color, if you will, that's relevant is brown because human skin varies on a brown continuum. But because of conditioning, we actually will see people that we would call white, or we would see people that we would call black. These labels are harmful because historically there are psychological triggers attached to them. So when one says black person, there is a history of beliefs and expectations associated with that. And by the same token, when one says white person, there are a string of beliefs and expectations associated with that. And these triggers have never been diffused. And they, the triggers have this kind of assumed power that helps us to reasonably know how to deal with persons who may have skin variations from our own. And it's really kind of sad because, we really should be evaluating each other based on our character, our content, our dreams and expectations that we express to others, not what others assume. Um, Human skin variation is actually in shades of brown. The original human family, of which we're all descendants, had brown skin due to the intensity of sunlight in the sub-Saharan African region. Um, that's the origin of the human family, and the human family, over time, just dispersed north and south from that region. And this region is referred to as the birthplace of humanity. I think science is relatively clear in terms of that being the starting point for the human family. And the human family simply migrated north and south towards the respective poles. Some more food for thought. The actual brown shade of skin, which varies from light brown to dark brown, is dictated by the type of melanin in our skin that is predominant. Lighter brown skin is rich in what is called pheomelanin, and this is a skin pigmentation that is an adaptation by nature, by biology, due to less intense sunlight at at the poles. So as the human family migrated north and south from sub-Saharan Africa, the intensity of sunlight changed, and as a result of that, a miracle occurred. Not something that's a sign of defect, but it's a miracle. The miracle what occurred was that as part of the adaptation to the different environments over time, pigmentation reflected reflected the realities of the new environment so that human life could be preserved. Darker skin is rich in U melanin, so persons that remain near or close to the equator, their skin remain darker to protect against the effects of ultraviolet rays. And so really the variation in skin, light brown to dark brown, is really a reflection of migration decisions from the equatorial regions in sub-Saharan Africa. And that is really all that distinguishes us in terms of the human family. And so persons that we may have problems with because of the lighter or the darkness of their skin, if we stop and think about it, if our grouping within the human family had have migrated, our own skin expressions would be different. So it really isn't a question of different, it's a question of uh, migratory decisions made within the human family that allow some of us to remain closer to the equator and some of us to migrate towards the poles. And then the beauty of nature was that there was an adaptation made so that the human family could continue to survive. Some more food for thought. There is a notion that floats in our society that only persons who have darker pigmented skin have melanin, but everyone has melanin. It's really a combination of eumelanin or pheomelanin. So every all human skin has melanin. And um, again, as I mentioned earlier, that melanin is a miracle of nature because it allows us to survive in geographically different locations. Human skin variations, should have never been the basis for forming human hierarchy. The labels that kind of are reserved in this hierarchy, white, yellow, red, brown, and black. Those are simply observably false. But it really, the contribution of human skin variation is so that we, as part of the human family, could survive in different parts of the planet. Continuing in this food for thought, um, the SOS has conditioned us to believe this false notion called race. And of course, if race is a collection of warped ideals, then any variant of that, such as racism, also is going to be false. And so the conventional thinking is that race, if you will, is the cause of our social ills. The social ills being, the inequality, the various types of socioeconomic gaps. Mm. But that reasoning is false. It's not because of race or the believed racism that such effects exist. It is because when we look upon closer examination, The true culprit, which is overlooked in the barbs that we hurl at each other socially, the true culprit is the SOS, because it's the collection of ideals that conditions us to believe falsely that race and racism are real. The race notion has no genetic basis. You can do DNA swaps, for example, and you can't tell from the results, you know, which humans are which. They don't fall into distinct categories or in a way that could be neatly classified in a hierarchy. So the race notion has no genetic basis. It's only biological contribution in terms of skin variation is that it's a miracle. It's a miracle that allows humans to survive in different climates. It's an climatal geographical adaptation, without which, you know, vast parts of the human family would become extinct. So if we dismiss the irrelevant being race and racism, the focus really should shift to the reprogramming of our minds, the unconscious portion, because it is there where the information is being transmitted out, and that's influencing our behavior, conditioning us to believe that race and racism are real. So in reality, race is not outside of us. It's a collection of ideals that are planted inside of us. And only once we change the information that's fueling those ideals will the behavior in the social landscape change. So to kind of drive home this point that I'm currently making, let's look a little closer. And specifically, efforts currently aimed at dismantling so-called mythical racism will never prove to be effective. Race is not real. It's a collection of warped ideals. And so physical efforts such as marches, protests, discrimination, sorry, demonstrations are akin to boxing the wind. Like you're not really fighting a real physical opponent. You're fighting an opponent that is mental in nature. On this point, if marches and protests and demonstrations were truly effective, they would have succeeded in their efforts, but they continue um, without interruption because the perceived social problem or social ill is still the same. So efforts at trying to defeat the SOS really are misdirected. So physical efforts against bizarre mental assertions, which is what the SOS is producing, is truly a pointless battle. It's an endless battle. It's a continuous struggle. It's a struggle that has no end because the efforts are being falsely directed. So only by changing the fuel sources that nourish the SOS will social behaviors start to change. So if you change the information that's being placed in us, that will change our perception of reality. That will change over time how we behave and relate to each other. So if you want to change the social climate, you have to start by changing the conditioning. So to change the social behavior, you change the social conditioning. And historically, because the conditioning has been reinforced, the tension and the behaviors we see and realize in society continue to go forth uninterrupted. And so we have to really think outside the box. We have to do the fighting on, from the internal rather than the external. So if you are challenged by the comments in this episode and you feel compelled to like, please do so. If you want to leave comments that will hopefully advance this discussion, feel free to do that. But most importantly, please share because we're trying to create a groundswell uh, of interest and discussion that hopefully will change the direction of our country for the better. Once we realize that we are all truly human, once we realize that, the race nonsense is just that, then I think we have an effective starting point to really see America the beauty. So until next time, we are humanity. A united tomorrow must start today. Take care.